activist Irene Ugba, who will be talking to us about the concerns and challenges of the development of the girl child in Nigeria. Good morning.
Good morning, Salamatu. Good morning, Tiana.
All right, so let's begin by asking why there is so much global focus on the girl child.
And not the male child.
Okay. Well, I get to hear that question most times. People ask you, why is there so much focus on the girl child? The truth is, first of all, is the girl child is more vulnerable than the boy child. Then secondly, of course, the system has actually, there has been a disparity in the system over the years, where boys are given more education than the girls. And now we're beginning to realize that 50% of your population can't carry the economy. You need the other 50%. So that is why the emphasis is there. When a girl gets pregnant, it's a boy that got her pregnant. Who drops out of school? Is it not the girl? Who stops, whose life pauses to take care of another human being and then wallow in poverty? That boy can get 20 other girls pregnant and still make it to the US and study and all that and become somebody very important tomorrow, and those girls will be in poverty all the days of their lives. So that is why there's more emphasis.
So the female child is indeed more vulnerable.
More vulnerable.
Now there is an increasing, reportage of rape cases, particularly of rape of the girl child in Nigeria. And this is despite the existence of laws that can actually protect the girl child.
Yeah.
We have the VAP law, we have the Child Rights Act,
yes.
and of course the other existing
laws. Yeah. Actually, worldwide, during the lockdown, there was an increase in gender-based violence, rape. But again, like I keep saying, I said because there are legislations in other countries that are enforceable. Mark my words, enforceable. Here, it was reported some 3 months back by IGP that over 750 cases were reported, rape cases. My question is, how many of those cases have been successfully prosecuted and those people put in jail? So when people know that, when someone knows that these things, they will try you forever, it goes on. So you are enabling it because there are no enforceable laws. And these laws are not penalizing the people, appropriately. For instance, recently one of the NGOs who does, the work on gender-based violence, she brought out her report. And then you see a judge convicting someone for 1 year of rape, another judge 2 years. Are you seeing the disparity? And what is 1 year?
So there's no
you don't have yes. So we need to get to the point where we have a unified law and say, if it's 20 years, wherever you are giving this judgment, whether in Zamfara or in Port Harcourt, 20 years.
But are the judges, I hate to say this, are they well educated and informed enough about the existing laws and what it stipulates and provides for the prosecution of offenders, sexual offenders?
Salamatu.
Actually at the state level.
Salamatu, they are the learned people. So if you're asking me who is unlearned, if they are well...
So there is no room for ignorance. I have a reason for asking the question.
There's no room for ignorance. The VAP Act has stipulated in its own. The Child Rights Act also has. There is no ignorance. But I just think that maybe because, like one of the sessions we've asked, you see these cases linger for so long. Somebody rapes somebody 3 years after, you have not prosecuted the person, you're still going back and forth, evidences. These are all the challenges. Recently I said, we advocating, why don't you have a special court with special timelines for this? I mean, the election tribunal has a special timeline. They'll tell you that if within something stipulated number of days, if you don't bring your case, that means you forget it. Why can't this also have a special time and special courts to prosecute these cases?
All right, we talk so much and pay so much emphasis on enabling laws that would check this incidence of rape cases. But what about, an advocacy? Do we need to start revisiting the upbringing of a boy child who perpetrates, these acts to serve as a precautionary measure? Because we need to prevent, prevention, they say, is better, than taking these curative measures.
Right now, we should be doing both. We should be doing prevention and prosecution, prevention and curing, because the cases have gone out of hand. I mean, you're in the media. Every day you're inundated with this. So we should be doing advocacy, which we're actually doing. But of course, we should step up the game, and government should also step up the game. And I also think that this illicit use of drugs might also be, there should be a research conducted on it, because you see people buying some of these things along, boys taking all this tramadol and so on everywhere, so we need to be doing both the advocacy, parenting, parenting rights from the home. Parents, how are we raising our boy children? Do you raise them to think that they are not of the man, or they don't, who is the girl? You know, so parenting, we need to get parenting right. We need to get education rights. Schools are resuming today. You know, we need to get our curriculum right. We need to get, it's a whole societal thing as we're doing advocacy. And of course, there are people who are already perpetrating it. And then some of these people, we also need to have a system to look at hurting people, hurt people. So there are people who have been abused. There are men who have been abused, who have been raped over time, and they have to find a way to channel it. So they hurt other people in that process. So we need to also, and you know, unfortunately in Nigeria, we don't have counseling, you know, strategic counseling and things like that. Therapy, where these people have to go through therapy. So it's a whole lot of work we need to be doing simultaneously.
You know, I want to go back to the question I asked earlier. I'm not challenging the judicial competence of the judges and all of that. I'm not doing that. But I'm just curious about the existing laws and how they've been enforced, especially to convict sexual offenders. I'm seeing that the criminal code actually provides them a maximum penalty, which is at the discretion of the judge. But the VAP law does, you know, limit that discretion to some extent and says any sexual offender found guilty should be charged to 12 years imprisonment or even more and all of that. Now, having said that, are you satisfied with the level of conviction or prosecution of sexual offenders so far, to know that actually a sexual offender can be taken to prison, can be confined to prison for 12 years? It's a huge relief.
Yeah, it's a huge relief, but again, you have to understand that each state has to adopt the VAP and domesticate the VAP law. So if your state hasn't domesticated it, you might not, the judge might say, I can't stand on that existing law because it's not domesticated in the state. And I think one of the challenge now, and what most the CSOs are doing, is to push for the domestication of the VAP laws in all the states of the federation. Now the compliance level is so low. I don't know, I'm not sure we have up to 15 states that have done that.
Yeah, and then the role of the police, where, you know, the report is actually presented even before it is you know, taken to court. What has been your observation about, you know, how the police handle rape cases?
Okay, the police are the first responders, but unfortunately they are not well trained, especially the gender desk. When I was here like 2 or 3 months ago with Iene, and one of the things we brought up was the fact that, you know, when people, with the other lady who came, when people come, the burden of responding, the burden of even going to prove lies on the victim. And then of course, even in terms of money, now you're asking the person who is raped to give you money for transport fare, for you to go to crime of sin. You are asking for this, so the police needs to be reoriented, the gender desk needs to be reorganized, and then police needs to be looked at holistically, and there must be funding. I wouldn't know what the funding in police is like, because when you're asking for transport to go there, that means there might be no funding for that. So we need, as much as we're actually blaming them, let's look at the IGP should look at the funding. Gender desk usually have a special fund, so that when these people report, there is fund to go there is fund to go and look for whoever is the person. And you know, time is of essence when it comes to these things, because the girl's body herself is the greatest what's it called, the greatest evidence, you know, against rape. So time is of essence.
All right, in prosecuting a sexual offender, you know, the victim needs to present, you know, evidence to convict the courts to take necessary action. Considering the difficulties associated with producing that evidence, you know, how much can we achieve, you know, in prosecuting those who sexually offend?
See, there is nothing new under the sun. I say it. See, any answer you're looking for, some other person has done it. How are the other countries doing it? How are the advanced world doing it? They are prosecuting, they are getting, it's a bit tough, it's a bit dicey, especially with our kinds of place where, you know, numbering of streets, addresses and things like that. But I challenge you that whenever police wants to work, they work. True. Whenever they decide that somebody has been, and they need to fish out those information. So I think that we should look at advanced world, how are they doing it? And then again, like I said, is the funding and timing. Because if you leave something to linger, whoever, it's just like a thief breaks in, and then after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, that's when you're coming to document. Police will even tell you that you didn't come at the time when you're supposed to come. Within 24 hours, someone gets missing, they say, okay, report after 24, because time is of essence. So, and then timing is also a function of resources. Do we have trained manpower? Do we have the funds? Do we have the vehicles as well to go out and pursue these things and get them? And then how are we using our intelligence? both security-wise and so on, because anyone who perpetrates a crime already has thought even what the law would do, and then they try to block those loopholes.
Let's look at the culture of silence and how it affects, prosecution and conviction of sexual offenders. What would you say is the major instigator and driver of this culture of silence? So a victim is not, encouraged to report to the police because of stigmatization, etc. So the family members would prefer to just keep quiet and remain silent.
It's a society. It's a society. It's a cultural belief. In March, I was in a group where women, from the southeast, and they said when a child is raped, they just go and tell you. The woman leader in the community will tell you, please don't say this outside. Do you know that if they come to marry anybody from your compound, they will bring up the issue. They will be used against you people even in 20 years' time. I said, what? Used against you in 20 years? So the society itself, our cultural belief, and so on. So those are the things that are. But I think it's getting better. Gradually we're getting there. Girls are beginning to talk. People are beginning, even the parents themselves. If you look at the cases of the ones in Lagos recently, the parents were actually the ones who went to the police station to report that their daughter was raped. So I think it's gradual. It will take a while. But let's not also victimize those who come out. You say, oh, look, she has been raped, and then it becomes a stigma to the person.
I was going to ask about the psychosocial support for victims of rape, whether it exists, and what is being done to reduce stigma on these children.
It exists, but also not existing, because when something is not sufficient, when something like a drop in the ocean is like it's not existing, you just have a few centers where they do this. So we encourage even the government and then private individuals. Some of these people should use their CSR to set up homes for women.
Irene, we must go now. Irene Ogba is a gender rights activist. Thank you so much for your perspective.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, that is how we call it a day on today's edition of Kaakaki, the African Voice. And yes, we would return tomorrow, Tuesday, with another edition of the program. Fortunately, we could not bring you the interview on the SARS protest. We're supposed to, have a conversation with human rights activists. Have a good morning and see you on Tuesday. I am Salamatu Ibrahim.
And I am Tiana Beso, PDA. Do have a blessed day.